It was a 5 or 6 year run where everybody was on such good behavior, whether they agreed with the benevolence and they want to support it, or whether they were like, I want to be on good behavior and not piss these people off because then I won't get it. But it didn't matter. It worked.
By the way, it spread from there.
And people were supportive. And if you weren't supportive, you would look like a loser. Like you were like,
hey, we're all
is
cool
this
here,
asshole?
man.
And you could feel it creeping back.
I get so mad at the industry, these coward guzzling because they're like, kill Tony. We could never have that. Oh, wait, it gets 8 million views every week?
Right.
Put it on. Let's sign a big contract. You're like, but where were you? Where's the vision?
I'm excited about that. Tires.
Soder
has no role. That makes you feel better.
Wow, that is interesting.
He's like, I'm not on there. And I was like, okay, so we can all. It's almost smart. If you have a TV show, you take your best buddy who showed you the ropes and took you everywhere under his wing. Don't put him on.
So for the past few weeks, I've started to notice a trend that kind of gave me some hope for the podcast comedy scene, because it seems like since Joe Rogan is no longer the kingmaker in comedy, a lot of comics are no longer afraid of getting on his bad side and potentially never making it on the Joe Rogan Experience. And so they're coming out and being honest about how they feel and also calling out the nonsense going on in comedy at the moment. And honestly, it's a lot more refreshing than hearing a comedian trying hard to sound smart while repeating the same talking points that they got from Rogan. Because at this point, a lot of these podcast comedians have become so repetitive, so boring, and predictable that the show shouldn't be referred to as comedy podcast and instead should be called what they are, a talk show on YouTube. And so in this video, we'll be going over how different comedians are handling the collapse of Joe's influence over the comedy scene and how some of those comedians who got way too big are not really following in Joe Rogan's footsteps when it comes to paying it forward and trying to help out as many comedians as possible, especially those who helped them in the beginning. And what makes this really interesting is that we have two different perspectives. On the one hand, we have comedians who are calling things out and are not really complaining or blaming cancel culture or the haters. And on the other, we have comics who have basically made it. They got all the money and all the success a comedian could ever wish for, but they still want to be seen as greater or more important than they actually are. So let's get started.
Oh, it reminds me of the great thing that I talk about all the time. Now I have another special coming out, is the Mark Maron with David Cross, where he's like, it's going on YouTube. He's like, did you try Netflix? He's like, we tried. He's like, just put it on.
I think about that 3 times a day.
I do too. I shot a special. I spent $50,000. You got a TV network over there, whatever the it's called.
Yeah.
Put it up.
Put it up.
Who cares?
It's free. Give me like $20.
Just cover the cost.
Right.
You're giving one guy $50 million. This is already made, edited, stamped, approved, big laughs.
Yeah. I get so mad at the industry, these coward guzzling because they're like, kill Tony. We could never have that. Oh, wait, it gets 8 million views every week?
Right.
Put it on. Let's sign a big contract. You're like, but where were you? Where's the vision? Where's the, I work in TV. I know what's good. I got a sixth sense. They don't have any of that. They go, oh, it's big now. Bring it right on. In my face.
No, I had a guy say, he's like, well, we could try to do Netflix, but it's in a club. They don't really do club specials. I'm like, first of all, I think they have. Also, shouldn't that be a positive?
Oh,
hey, Netflix, you don't have any club special. Like, since when is that bad?
Yeah, original. Oh, we can't have original. Whoa, we can't have a unique idea. Again, the coward.
But anyways, Netflix, take my special, please.
There you go.
But it's good. It's funny.
And then they're like, can you get out of the way? We got a actor coming in to do a comedian. I'm like, I'm here.
Right.
I'm queer. What are you doing?
Well, also, I think some of our podcast appearance may be holding us back a little bit.
Well, we do it for you guys. We're staying true and saying just for you, because we're losing acting roles.
We've done a couple of voices here or there that may have scared people away. By the way, I just made a trailer for my movie, and I put a quote from a certain comedian that I love, and then they wrote back, and they're like, get that quote out of here. We're not going to sell this movie.
What?
Yeah, because it was like, I love this movie, a person. And then the distributor and the the Academy emailed me and was like, you better erase that name. You want to show this film.
How'd you get a Cosby quote?
So we replaced him with Burr. We got a Burr in there.
Oh, smart.
Now for this one, we do have two different clips from the same podcast episode. The one that you just saw and another one that we'll be playing shortly, in which both Joe List and Mark Norman call out Shane Gillis for not including Dan Soder, a close friend of his, on the new season of Tires, which is coming out on Netflix soon. And it is a good point. But first, I wanted to go over the idea that that Netflix is unfair or inconsistent with who they give out comedy specials out to. And although I don't fully disagree with that, I feel like at this point, most people know that that simply being on Netflix doesn't necessarily mean that you're the funniest or the best at comedy at the moment. And instead, it's more like a stamp of approval and a way to show everyone else that you're finally accepted and welcomed by Hollywood. Because, for example, back then, Netflix would actually take chances and give out comedy specials to smaller comedians. And a lot of them have continued to do Netflix specials ever since, like every other year. But then when it comes to comedians like Ari Shaffir, he did have a comedy special on Netflix, but never got another one until this year. And also, Tony Hinchcliffe did have a comedy special on Netflix, which apparently did so bad that it's been completely deleted from the entire internet. It's impossible to find. And if you look at the ratings, well, it does make sense.
So you're a podcaster, and did the podcast give you that boost into being able to headline? Was it the exposure from the podcast? What was it? What was it?
It takes a perfect storm. That's part of it, right? And I made my own Netflix special, executive produced that, and sold it to Netflix at a time in which almost not a lot of people were getting Netflix
Was
specials.
the podcast going at that point?
Yeah. That was in 2015 I made it and sold it, and it aired January 2016. And that's back again.
It's on Netflix now, yeah?
Jesus Christ. No, I had a 2-year licensing deal.
So can people see it now anywhere?
Yeah. You can get it on Amazon or iTunes or...
What's it called?
One Shot. It's all my first jokes. All the first material that I wrote.
Your first material.
Yeah, my first special.
Which was 3 years after you made it.
And also, Andrew Schulz was basically rejected by everyone, including Amazon Prime. And so the fact that they all have comedy specials on Netflix now is very interesting, because Kill Tony recently had their first episode stream on Netflix. Apparently it's one of 3 that will be on there, on top of a comedy special that he landed as part of a deal, which is absolutely insane. But when it comes to the Kill Tony episode, it was a complete flop for Netflix standards. I mean, it was almost as bad as Joe's comedy special, and to me, it felt like the most regular Kill Tony episode, but worse. I mean, everyone was tense. Joe Rogan and Tom Segura added absolutely nothing to the show, and it was mainly Shane and Kyle carrying the whole thing. In my opinion, it was bad. I mean, it would be like if Joe Rogan straight up uploaded an episode of his podcast on Netflix, and the only difference was the high quality 4K cameras that they used, which I would argue for Kill Tony is a little bit distracting. Now, of course, there were some funny moments, but the episode being on Netflix kind of felt pointless. It didn't really add much value, and it wasn't even a great episode for YouTube standards. And what's really funny but also messed up is that according to Joe List, Netflix told him that they don't do comedy specials at clubs, which is absolutely insane because, of course, Kill Tony was shot at the mothership, but also Brian Simpson's recent comedy special on Netflix was also shot at the mothership. And so it doesn't sound like they don't want comedy specials shot at clubs, and instead they simply want comedians that are close friends with Rogan, because they know that if they're friends with Rogan, if they're part of the Rogansphere or part of that ecosystem, you know, it definitely helps when it comes to promoting the special. And so it's a win-win for both of them. And by the way, don't forget to like the video. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Funny guy. Hayden Church doesn't get his due. He's on Tires, apparently. He's on the new season.
Oh, that's right. I heard that. I'm excited about that. Tires. Soder has no role. That makes you feel better.
Wow, that is interesting.
He's like, I'm not on there. And I was like, okay. So we can all... It's almost smart. If you have a TV show... You take your best buddy who showed you the ropes and took you everywhere under his wing. Don't put him on.
That's a great point.
And then nobody can be upset they're not on the show.
We've all had the feeling, you wake up one day on a Saturday, scratch your ass going, why am I not on Tires? I know Gillis. I got to protect our parks. We've gotten drunk. I've eaten his ass. I I can't get a Netflix spot.
Well, he might have seen your acting reel,
That's
but
true. It ain't pretty.
But for me, I mean, I don't get it. I'm Timothy Chalamet over here. I'm what's his name? Lee Strasberg over here.
Well, that's your problem. No one knows who that guy is, but you got a couple of school films under your...
Oh yeah, I'm doing another one. I keep committed because I want to be an actor, Jerry.
Yes, thespian.
So people, they go, hey, I wrote a short film. I got a budget of $8, and I wrote a script. If you have a full script, you send it to me. I'm in.
Yeah.
And then I commit, and then I reread the script, and I'm like, oh boy, this is a real clunker. I'm not saying any movie in particular. Luckily, I'm in like 3, so everyone can think it's the other person.
Sure. I'm thinking 4th of July. Was that the one?
Yeah, well, that one we could have done a second draft, probably. What can you do?
Well, they're shooting this movie at the Cellar.
And look, to be completely honest, I'm not too familiar with Shane's and Dan's friendship or relationship going way back. But from what I saw and going off of Joe's comments, it sounds like he's talking about how Dan back then was the one who brought on Shane Gillis onto the bonfire for the first time. And then Shane became a regular. And since back then he was pretty new in stand-up comedy, it obviously helped him out a lot. And I don't think they're coming from a bad place. And instead, I feel like they're simply saying what everyone else in their circle has been saying or thinking, because I feel like it is a pretty big deal. It's not like how back then Bert Kreischer didn't really include any comedians on his movie, because back then everyone kind of knew what was going to happen with that movie. But in this case, when it comes to Tires, because it has been proven to work, and it is Shane Gillis, I mean, he has been blowing up and everyone likes him, I feel like that would have been a great opportunity for a comedian to advance their career. But also, I am curious to see what you guys think, because it might not be a big deal, since technically Shane was never that guy. He would never preach being that guy that would help everyone out and cared about other comedians, even if he does behind the scenes. But when it comes to Andrew Schulz or Tony, it is a little bit different. And also, I did notice something similar with the Kill Tony episode, because at the end, it says created by Tony, but no mention of Red Band, which I thought was really odd. But also, on top of that, having Tom Segura and Joe Rogan on the episode again was absolutely useless. It was pointless.
Let me tell everybody, because right now, as of this moment, Kill or Be Killed is out now. It's on Netflix. It's a special episode of Kill Tony. We were both at that and participated in.
Yes, we did.
Some way I participated in sitting there. And like, they were just
that
like,
counts.
Yeah, they were like, just don't, I don't know, just react.
Yeah.
Watch the show. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just sit on stage, and then
I'm not sure if that happened because it was a requirement by Netflix. Maybe it was a whole bundle, since Shane and Tom also have shows coming up on Netflix soon. Or maybe it was simply Tony not wanting to give somebody else a chance, and instead just one of the biggest comedians on that episode, which once again, it was absolutely pointless. It was useless, and it would have been a lot better if Tony simply had actual comedians on the panel, on the table, actually adding to the show and not just sitting there quietly. That would have been a lot better for the show, but also for the comedian. And so, in my opinion, those are the things that kind of show when a comedian isn't looking out for others and instead is just looking out for themselves. Now, to be fair, I guess, how do you balance wanting to be successful and wanting to make all the money in the world, and also wanting to give someone an opportunity and take the risk of having them on your show, which I would argue nothing is worse than having Tom Segura and Joe Rogan just sitting there quietly the whole time.
I love that no matter how big people are getting, you're in movies now, stand-up stays a stand-up.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they really care about.
Yeah.
Is the stand-up.
It's the only thing. It's the only thing that matters.
The rest is just cake.
Yeah. I think stories are cool, however they're told.
This special life was full stories almost from start to finish. A few bits, but almost
Mostly
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we were coming up, the younger comics don't know this as much, but when we were coming up, there's going to be 8 people that get half hours this year. Mm-hmm. Are we going to be one of the 8?
Right.
And if we weren't, it was like, well, they didn't deserve it. Da-da-da. Now it's...
What helped me with that is the who's going to get passed at the Comedy Store, and I would get mad. I'd start to get mad at my friends for getting it. And then I realized it wasn't them or me, because some weeks she passed 4 people and some weeks she passed none.
Yeah.
It just wasn't me.
Yeah, a lot of people don't even get there. Yeah. Especially in our field, there's a lot of these are really competitive people and also insecure people in our field.
You see people going off publicly. It's the new hackiest thing. And you want to be like, bro, what are they doing? They're not stealing from anybody. I'm sorry, they're not as good as you want them to be.
We had
Chill.
it buttoned up
Yeah.
for like a 5-year run. There was like a 5 or 6 year run, and I think it was
Support or be quiet.
And I think it was literally like when you went on Rogan, you became famous. And it was like, it was a 5 or 6 year run where everybody was on such good behavior, whether they agreed with the benevolence and they want to support it, like I hope we feel, or whether they were like, I want to be on good behavior and not piss these people off because then I won't get it. But it didn't matter. It worked.
By the way, it spread from there.
And people were supportive. And if you weren't supportive, you would look like a loser. Like, you were like,
Hey, we're all
is
cool
this
here,
asshole?
man. We're all being cool here. What
You're
are
just
you
gonna
doing?
shit on people? Like, what do you offer by shitting on people?
Yeah.
And you could feel it creeping back.
Yeah.
And I think it usually comes
what
from
is that? What do
no
you
hope.
think?
Comes from no hope.
It's some successful people who have hope.
Success is determined by, unfortunately for the bottomless pit people, where they are
Compared to where they want to be?
where someone else is.
Right. It's comparison.
There are people that can sell out arenas, but if somebody is doing 2, that's the only thing they can focus on. And it's like, and it's so sad.
Now, when it comes to Ari and Andrew, it is odd that somebody like Ari, who can be brutally honest with Bert Kreischer, cannot do the same with Schulz, because there was a lot of things that he could have called out. I mean, he did technically bring up the fact that his special was mostly stories and not a lot of bits, but it wasn't in a negative way. And in my opinion, that was what made the special such a disappointment, because it was him leaning more into the Bert Kreischer style of jokes and storytelling. But then when they start having this deep conversation, trying to figure out why comedians are so mad and publicly trashing each other, that's when things don't make any sense. And it's so stupid that at first I thought it was a bit, but then when I saw that they were serious, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you have Andrew Schulz and Ari Shaffir complaining that other comedians publicly trashing each other is somehow bad and lame. Like, what are we talking about? That would be like if Steve-O got mad and was complaining that the UFC allowed people to hurt each other. That would be like if Joe Rogan was mad that Austin was full of hippies. It doesn't make any sense because that's their thing. That's exactly what they have been doing for the past however many years. It's insane.
There are people that can sell out arenas, but if somebody is doing 2, that's the only thing they can focus on. And it's like, and it's so sad because it's like, whatever, regardless of what you believe in, it's like,
Probably know people on the top 10, top 20 earners list who are pissed about their position on it. I'm like, you're in the top 20. It's the over $1 million a year, and you're mad at your placement. Not even, I want more money. Your money's fine. You want them to be just below you.
no,
Like,
you actually, that's the most important thing. They don't want more money. They just want that other person to be making less.
Right. So if it's them make more, great. If they make less, also great.
It's pure bottomless pit.
We got guys, chill.
Dude, but and then it gets rewarded because negativity is obviously rewarded on the internet because we all have these, the fear is what moves things in society. Like whatever we fear, we see. And, but it is a problem, man.
I mean, there's no way that 2 of the edgiest comedians in recent times are really that soft and sensitive that they can't handle all the comedians finally speaking out and saying what they actually feel about them. But also, instead of talking about why they might be mad, why not focus on the actual criticism? Especially if you're on a podcast, why not talk about it instead of just dancing around the subject? Because in my opinion, the reason why people are quote unquote mad or hating is because of the fakeness and the switch up once everyone became rich. For example, with Joe Rogan, before he used to be ruthless and would call out anyone on his podcast, and at some point back then, he even publicly executed Carlos Mencias' career for stealing and being a bully. But then, when his friends got accused of the same thing, he went quiet. And when it comes to Andrew, well, pretty much the same thing happened before. It was everyone got these jokes and all the guests on the podcast were getting trolled and messed with. And now he's pretending like he's the nicest person out there that would never say anything negative about another comedian. Keep in mind that back then, it was actually Brendan Schaub, the one who showed Andrew to Joe Rogan. And so technically, thanks to Brendan, Andrew Schulz got on the Joe Rogan podcast. So pretty big deal.
And Brendan's like a really great dude. He's a genuinely sweet dude who helps people. He's the reason I got on Rogan. Like he was like, yo, you got to get this guy on. This is before anybody was looking at my shit. Like, and that really changed my life. So he's actually a great dude. And And he's just getting destroyed by that thing.
But funny enough, recently he was on a podcast tour and even went to LA and did radio, but did not do The Fighter and the Kid. Why? How come a comedian like Andrew, who wants to help out others, why isn't he helping out a young, struggling comedian like Calle? I'm kidding, of course. He wasn't going to go on the podcast, but if he wanted to, that is a good way to help out the show, which is struggling.
And
Rogan's great at that though. Everyone's like, he's right wing, he does this, he does that, but at the same time, like, he puts on open micers. He literally props up the lowest of us.
it's the
People
most,
aren't paying rent, and he goes, "No, I got to have them on." Oliver Stone, you can't come on this week
Bro,
because I'm full with this open micer I just saw who did something funny.
Yeah, and listen, don't get me wrong. It is incredible that he's able to do it. And like, there's a thing. It's like, I wish that every single comic that was like, "Hey, can I come on Flagrant?" I wish I could have that.
But that's the problem too.
But yeah, the problem is just like, all right, well, unfortunately,
It's limited.
there's one episode we do a week.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, unfortunately that's the case. But listen, maybe I would be pushing more benevolence if I did just make it this avenue for comics to get some exposure for their specials coming out. Like, maybe that would work better. Maybe it would fill my soul more. I don't know. But I also have to be like, okay, well, are there other people that I committed to talking to?
It's also
And
now
then-
we have 4 or 5 specials a week, and you're like, I literally can't do all of them.
I guess I'm trying to call myself out a little bit for saying this one thing and maybe not doing it to the perfect extent, but it is a little bit different in that regard. But I rack my brain about like, okay, well, what can I do even if I can't have them on?
You can post for
Maybe
them.
I can post for them.
There's so
Maybe
many
I can
avenues of helping now. It's
exactly.
great.
Like, there are other avenues of help, and I try to be as kind as I can and help as many people as I can with whatever
Advice.
But it is something that I've kind of noticed is like that like bitterness that existed in the 90s. That
Creeping.
it's not creeping. It's
So many of them are doing it.
but it comes from, in my opinion, it comes from just a lack of. There's 2 versions. There's like bottomless pit people who are just always going to be bottomless pits, even during
That's
the
fine.
good
That's
times.
that's their happy place, actually.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but like, there's nothing you can do about
Right.
it. But the other version, I think, is like where it just doesn't feel like there's hope. When there's hope, and I think that was the excitement with like the early YouTube version, the early clips, and then obviously Rogan. Like, I think for young comics, I imagine the only way they think that you could pop off right now is if you get that Kill Tony.
Now, the whole idea that Andrew wishes he could have more comedians on the podcast is absolutely insane, because unless I missed it and he sold the show and no longer calls the shots, then it doesn't make any sense because it's a comedy podcast hosted by comedians. Why not just have a comic on the show? Is it maybe that whenever a comedian goes on the show, Andrew Schulz gets completely outclassed and trolled and made fun of? Because if we take a look, for the past 7 months, they've only had 2 comedians on the show. David Smith, which was more of a political episode, and the British comedian. And so it is pretty wild. But in my opinion, and we have mentioned this before, what likely happened was that because Andrew was trying to get away from being seen as an edgy comic in his recent rebrand, he avoided having any comic on that would potentially call him out or disagree with him, and instead focused more on positioning the show to be more of a political talk show. It really feels like his goal every time when he does a podcast is not to make his friends laugh or the audience laugh, and instead the whole goal is to hopefully make headlines or have a clip go viral when talking about politics. And it does make sense because ever since the Trump episode, they haven't had many comedians on the podcast. And if we take a look at the numbers, it's very clear that back then they had the first bump from the Joe Rogan appearance, which was massive. And a lot of the audience actually stayed because they continued to have good episodes. And then for a while, things started to slow down until they had the Trump episode, which was a massive episode. But the point is that he chose to lean more into the politics, which is fine. But then he contradicts himself when he says that he wants to help out comedians while having the perfect platform to do so, but using it to talk about everything except comedy. It doesn't make any sense. And I feel like that's why a lot of comedians like Bargatze get a lot of respect from other comics, because they don't need to do all the gimmicks and all the tricks like having a massive podcast and going viral for being an edgy comic, and instead they just focus on the comedy.
Well, I was talking to Nate about this,
Yeah.
and he goes, we used to have something to aim for. Letterman, Leno,
Yep.
and we'd aim for a Tonight Show that actually mattered. People listening at home aren't going to understand this.
Yeah.
It like mattered and it really helped.
Yeah.
And then that kind of went away, and Nate's like, I want to create an avenue where
Yeah.
even if you don't get it, you can aim for this.
Yeah.
My old storytelling show was
Yeah.
like something I could aim
100%.
for to like And then if you fall short, you're still ahead.
But there's a thing you're going. Yeah, I've been thinking about this, like specifically with. Also, it's great that Nate's thinking about that. Like even to just think about younger people and wanting them to succeed. I was thinking about this like with New York specifically. I'm like, what is the thing that a young comic here can do to get on? Podcasting is no longer the thing where like you do one episode, you're a famous person.
That's done.
That's done.
Yeah.
And so there's this part of me, it's like the same kind of feeling with Nate. It's like, I want to create a property. Like I love that Kill Tony gives so much hope to comics. Like they're like, if I get on that, people are going to see it. Maybe I become a regular and then I can tour.
You know what I was thinking?
I want to create something for New York specifically where comics here go, oh shit, I can get better with the best comics in the world because there's no question the best are right here. And I also have hope that I can build my career here because it's not just clips anymore. And I see comics and they're like, but I got to do crowd work. First of all, you don't have to do anything.
You don't have to do anything. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, I talk to comics about this. Like, I don't do it. Like, then don't.
Don't do it. But
your thing will come around.
Do something.
Right.
This is the thing where it's just like, there's a little bit of this that's coming with the bitterness. There's a little bit of this culture of like trying is gay.
That's Shane's whole. That's his whole aesthetic.
But he
trying is gay.
First of all, I don't agree with that because he makes really amazing shit.
No, but he goes, I won't use good lighting. I won't. Trying is gay is his aesthetic.
Well, I don't want to feel like that's a shot at Shane because I think that he does like amazing.
No, he's promoting that.
But my suspicion is with that is that like
he's lying.
No, I actually think it's like my suspicion is I don't want this to get too big. The podcast. I'll put tons of effort into the things that I want to be huge and explosive, but the podcast is dangerous. Like imagine, look at what he went through initially with a podcast.
Yeah.
One clip could have cost him the thing that he always wanted.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
But I do think that like looking at that and going,
it's an aesthetic style. It doesn't mean trying is gay. It's like don't act like you're trying and like look at I've done all this prep work. Even like roasts. Like little ones will be like, I didn't prepare for this. And it's like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. You're lying because trying is gay.
We all try.
Yeah.
No, I think, then I fundamentally disagree with that.
And now this is when things get very interesting because, of course, Andrew Schulz already has a massive platform that he could use to help out other comedians, smaller comedians, younger comedians, or whatever, but doesn't. And instead, he likes to fantasize about what it would be like if he built something bigger to help out more comedians. It doesn't make any sense. And so to me, it seems like as soon as he heard that Nate's had some plans to help out other comics, it turns out that he also had been thinking about that the whole time. And it kind of reminded me of that Louis C.K. bit where he's flying first class on a plane and then a soldier boards the plane and he thinks about switching seats because that would make him a really good person, but doesn't. And then at the end, he still feels good just for thinking about it, just for having the thoughts. And it does feel like it's kind of what Andrew did. But also, when it comes to helping out younger comedians, in my opinion, I don't think they need another platform or more exposure. And instead, they need to get better at comedy. And I feel like one of the best ways to help would be to get them to get away from that Schulz mindsets. Because Andrew has basically become the Gary Vee of the stand-up world. And if making it in business is already hard, I mean, the chances of doing what Andrew did or what Tony did are pretty much zero. It's impossible. And so instead, I think it would be better if he was more relatable, like Louis C.K. when talking to comedians. And I'm gonna reach hard for this one, but I'll say that if comedians like Schulz really wanted to help out smaller comedians, they would stop doing arenas because, hear me out, when you do an arena show, you do one massive show and have the openers do one show and that's it. But if they did a stupid amount of theater shows or even clubs, you could really start giving a lot of comedians a lot of opportunities. Imagine if you wanted to get in shape and work out and you had two options. You could work out once a week in the biggest gym ever or daily in a local smaller gym. I mean, not everyone needs to be on a late night TV show or sell out arenas. They just need gigs. I feel like there's a ton of talent that shouldn't have to wait in an alley in hopes that they'll be on Kill Tony and hopefully Tony likes them. That's kind of what Joe Rogan was always against when it came to Hollywood auditions.
When I just needed to just work again, and sometimes just comedy clubs, there is this fear when you're up there. If I ever had to just go back to the Funny Bone, sitting next to the soda machine as it out into the room, the smell of fried food, I may just have myself if I go back. But I got back there and I was so happy. I loved it because I just loved telling the fucking jokes.
Yeah.
And I'm closer to the crowd. And the money you make as a stand-up selling out a comedy club over a weekend is ridiculous. It's that it's close to my that's enough point.
Yeah.
Is just, I mean, they give you the whole door.
Yeah.
And it's insanely good money.
Yeah.
So money-wise, I was like, I can live on that.
Yeah.
And then make it.
And the
make
fans pay less, which is something that's
That's
important
right.
to you.
And then when you make, and then when you get little bumps, like, hey, I'm back in the theaters. This is so fun. Didn't know if I'd be back in the theaters, but it's just doing the work was plenty. I don't miss that shit at all. The mountaintop. A mountaintop is a place you visit. You don't live
there.
You don't live in a tent sucking oxygen. It's actually not fun up there. It's a goal.
Yeah.
But it's not a life. It's a place to visit, and it's a place to be seen from miles around, so you can collect. I have fans now from a lot of different places. I have fans all over Europe. I play all over the world because of the opportunity I was given by those people in Hollywood to get up high. But now they're with me. I was smart enough to collect them on my own to find a way to get directly to them.
Yeah.
Did you
But
do
I
that?
don't miss being like shit red carpets and being on
Yeah.
lists and
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
I think comics are too self-aware to enjoy that.
To enjoy that stuff.
That like red carpet
A
treatment.
lot
Like,
of
we're
them
people.
love it. A lot of them love it. Some people need that. They like that's their indicator that they are alive. That's their indicator that they're doing something.
Yeah.
I think that's sad. That's not sustainable. And it's also not based on you. It's based on a trend. I got a lot of attention that I didn't have coming to me.
Yeah.
I'm proud of the work I did, but it was like, are you kidding me? You know?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
when I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
comics looking at me going like, dude, enough. I agreed with them. I'm like,
was one of them.
I was like, yeah, I'm sure you were. It's just like it was enough already.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, you don't want to be that guy.
Right.
Well, there
was
was,
not- no.
when I met you was a low.
That's what I'm
low
saying.
point.
There was a 5 or 6 gap, 7-year gap,
Commercials before, yeah.
where there was nothing happening.
I do remember that.
When I met her,
How are you making money?
just doing really terrible road dates, getting like,
Oh yeah, you hated the road.
the guarantee. Like I would fill half the room, right? So I would just get the guarantee.
I remember when a good weekend was like 7-8K. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a good weekend. Like I would call and go, oh my God, I can't believe I made this. You know what I mean? So it was-
85% of your listeners like, that's so good. What the fuck are you talking
Wait,
about?
who is?
What? All your listeners like, that's so much money. What do you mean?
I know.
Yeah.
But comparatively speaking to
So
my
that would have been
peers-
your time to take off?
And so I think comedy should be back in the clubs, or if you do massive venues and arenas, have it be a massive event, like an actual special event, and not just doing stand-up at an arena. And so once again, in my opinion, whenever another comedian hates on someone like Andrew Schulz, Tony, or even Ari, and maybe Shane, you let me know what you think in the comments below. Whenever they hate on a massive comedian like that, it's usually because of the unnecessary change, because of the money. Again, we saw that according to Louis and Bobby Lee, whenever comics sell out clubs, it's really good money, like a lot of money. And because now we can see what they've been working on for the past couple of years, Andrew Schulz has his comedy special on Netflix, Ari Shaffir does as well, and Tony just released his first Kill Tony episode on Netflix. And he also has a comedy special coming out. And so far, it's not looking good. And so to me, it seems like they were simply going for the money, even if it meant changing the comedy. Now, to be fair, that's more about Ari and Andrew, because when it comes to the Kill Tony episode, it was the same style of comedy, except that it wasn't that good of an episode for Netflix standards.
This is my estimation. Whenever I see bitterness, I assume it comes from lack of hope, like lack of potential opportunity, right? Like I don't want to name certain people that people were upset about, but I saw some people being upset about somebody's success, and I was asking Mark Gagnon and some of the other guys, and I was like, "Are you hearing this?" They're like, "Yeah, a lot." And I'm like, my knee-jerk reaction was more, we need to find something where these guys can come up in here, because when they see someone else get success and they start being upset at it, it's because they don't feel like there's an avenue.
Yeah.
And not everybody is going to go shoot their own thing or clip.
Yeah, and when you're way bigger, you don't care if somebody gets passed at the cellar. When you've done Madison Square Garden, you lose that, like, what? They're in it? This?
Yeah.
It's like,
No,
okay, good for you, man.
It's the weirdest thing about this is like the people that treat you like shit on the way up in comedy, the second you pass them, you have no animosity towards them at all.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that goes away.
Some low-level hurdle.
Yeah, and they were dealing with their
That's the thing too. When you look back at like Comedy Central never booking me or whatever, you're like, oh well, I kind of sucked.
Yeah, it's like, or it's like you had a job, you didn't want to lose it, like.
And so once again, it's not that people are mad or jealous or feeling hopeless, because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities out there, and instead they're simply calling out the fakeness and the massive switch when everyone got rich. For example, when it comes to Andrew, he used to call out everyone and engage regardless of what it was. And that is kind of what made the podcast unique, because if you remember back then, he wasn't afraid of asking Brendan Schaub about the truck walk. Then there was a Fresh and Fit episode, and also the whole situation with Steiny. But nowadays, Andrew makes it a point to not address the haters. It's almost like he thinks that just naming one person will make them successful. It's insane. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.